These are the topics that we are going to discuss today, and most of them are very advanced topics and little bit hard to understand and little bit confusing too. So listen to the session properly, stay focused here, and after completion of the session, so try to practice immediately to get better understanding of these concepts. So first thing is, let us see how these objects will be stored in memory. This knowledge is really very essential. Up to now, you might worked with C and C++ also. So whenever you declare the variable, either in C, C++ or even in JavaScript also, all the variables will be stored in the RAM of the computer, random access memory temporarily. So that subject already we discussed. So once the data occupied in the memory, it will be used by the program. Once the execution is completed, the data will be removed from the memory. That is actual memory life cycle. Okay, so now actually we have two kinds of data types here, like primitives and non-primitives. Under the primitives, already we have seen the categories. What are the data types belongs to primitive category? So they are number, string, begint, boolean, undefined, null, symbol. These all data types belongs to primitive category, and object belongs to non-primitive category. Okay, so in RAM, is there any difference between these primitive and non-primitive? That knowledge is very, very essential, not only in JavaScript. This knowledge will helpful to you in your C++ as well as in Java also, that you are going to learn in future. Okay, so I'm going to give the complete detailed information to you in this session. That is the first topic that we are going to focus. Let us see first of all how to store, how these particular primitives will be stored in the memory. See, actually in the RAM, our JavaScript will use two kinds of memories, stack as well as heap. So in your C++ as well as C language, or even in Java also, the same kind of memory management will be happen. So two kinds of memory storages are there inside the RAM. One of them is called stack, next one is heap. All the primitives will be stored into the stack memory of the heap automatically. All the primitives will be stored into the stack memory of the particular RAM actually. So let us see this example. I have taken some good number of variables like male, name, age, adult. So then these particular variables will be stored directly into the stack. So if you are already aware of the stack data structure, so which is last in first out, okay, push operation, pop operation, those kind of things can be happen. But here you no need to have that knowledge. Okay, so the knowledge about stack is really not necessary to understand the storage structure. If you already have that knowledge, that may be an additional advantage to you. But to understand how these variables will occupy in computer's memory, the knowledge of stack and the stack operations are not at all necessary. So you just need to understand all the primitives will be stored into the stack memory, where this stack memory will be existed in RAM only. In RAM, actually, every programming language will use two memories in the RAM. One of them is called stack1, second one is the heap memory. The stack memory can be used to store the primitive values. For example, if I have taken age 24, then age 24 will be stored. And if I take name as John, so the name will be stored here. All the primitives will be stored into the stack memory. Okay, so this can be used to store static data. All the primitives are called as static data. Static data means, so they will be created so during the program's compilation itself. Whereas when you come for the objects, they will be created during program's execution. Okay, so here all these primitives will create during the compilation itself. That's why all these data can be called as the static data that will be stored in the stack memory. And the JavaScript engine knows the size in compile time. During the compile time, the JavaScript engine aware of how much space is required to store this data in advance. During compile time itself, for example, if I have taken age 24, so how much memory space is required to store the value 24? That knowledge the JavaScript engine will allocate that space for that, because it knows how much space is required for this value. Next, if I want to store the male as true, for example, then it know how much value, how much space is required to store the Boolean value true. And name is equal to John Doe. So it knows how much space is required to store this one. Like that for all the primitives, so the size will be calculated during the compilation of the program itself. I think you know every program will have two things, compilation and execution. Some activities will be performed during compile time, some activities will be at the runtime. So in C, C++, Java, JavaScript, everywhere, this is common situation. Okay, so the JavaScript aware of the size of these particular primitives during the compile time, immediately it will store those data in the stack memory. Like that, all the primitives will be stored in the memory. But what about objects? This is slightly difficult to understand. Please focus here, because based on this storage of the objects in memory, we are going to learn some more knowledge about these objects, which is very, very essential to move ahead. For example, I have taken a sample array as well as an object also with name myTable. So here these two belongs to same object category. That's why I have taken these two examples. Even array also belongs to object data type, and object itself belongs to object data type. So now whenever we have taken object type kind of stuff, how they will be stored? Actually, the size required is not known during the compile time. For example, if I have taken some array, so how can we fix the size? How can the compiler know about the size of the array? Because during execution of the program, the size of the array can be increased by adding more elements, or the size of the object can be increased by adding some properties dynamically, or some elements can be removed from this array, or some properties can be removed from the object. Because these two represents pack, to that pack some new stuff can be added either, or some stuff can be removed from that. That means the size is not known in advance during the compile time. That's why these objects will be created only during the runtime. Even in C language, C++, Java also, on JavaScript also, the same thing will be happen. In C language, actually objects are not there, but in place of that, you might have learned pointers. Okay, so to create the pointers, okay, we use the malloc, cloc functions, and to remove them, you might have used a free function. These malloc and cloc functions will create the space during runtime itself. The pointer itself is not the name of the variable. It is act as the reference to that variable. Hope you already learned all this stuff from your first semester, that is in C language. Here, whenever we store the data, so the data represented with the variable. So male is the name, true is the value, age is the variable name, 24 is the value. So that the data can be stored directly here. But when you come to the objects, all the objects will be stored in the heap memory, not in the stack memory. Okay, if I take this particular array, this array will be stored in the heap. If I take this myTable object, that object will be stored. But what about the names of those? The names will be stored in the stack memory like this. So array is the name I have taken here. So array is here, it refers to this one. And myTable is the name of this object, and this myTable variable is stored in the stack and it refers to this one. That's why for the primitives, we call them as the name of the variables. Here, male, name, age, adult. These four are called as the names of the variables. But when you come to objects, objects do not have the names to the, they can be called as references, because array is the reference variable to this particular one, and myTable is the reference variable to this particular object. So objects do not have the name, they can have only reference variables. This is very, very, very important point. Please note down that point. So this knowledge will be useful to you in your C++ also. In stack memory, for example, if you take primitives, for example, the primitives contains the names to the variables. Okay, so male is the name of the variable which contains the value true. Age is the name of the variable which contains the value 24. But when you come to the objects, array and myTable, these two cannot be called as the names of the variables. They can be called as the references. Array is the variable which refers to this. Array, my table is the reference variable which refers to this object. So objects have only references but not the names. That's why whenever we create these objects, etc., we should not call them as name of the object or name of the array. For example, let us take the yesterday's program we have taken. So yesterday we created some objects, some arrays. For example, if I take this one, let me write something here. Let a is equal to 20. Now here, a can be called as the name of the variable. Okay, a is name of variable. But ARR should not be called as name of variable. It is reference to this array. Because this is a non-primitive, it is an object. Objects cannot have the names. Objects can have only reference variables. Now you may get the doubt, sir, what is the difference whether it is name or reference? What's the hell here? How this knowledge will be useful? This knowledge is really very, very important, especially when we are performing the advanced operations on these objects. If you do not know the difference between name of the variable, reference of the variable, so it leads to so many issues, especially we are creating copying of the object, copy of the objects or something else. So this knowledge will be very, very essential to us. So final conclusion is primitive data have the names to the variables, whereas non-primitives contains the references, but not the names. That's why here array, my table, these two should not be called as the name of the objects. They should be called as the reference system. So these variables will be stored in the stack, whereas these particular objects will be stored in the heap memory, not in the stack memory. So which values will be stored in the stack? All the primitive values will be stored in the stack, as well as references also will be stored in the stack. See, so in the stack, primitives and references will be stored. And all non-primitives will be stored directly into the heap memory. Heap is the memory which always stores the dynamic data. That means the data which can be created during execution of the program can be called as dynamic data or dynamic storage. That will be done in heap memory only. Okay, so hope you are clear with the stack as well as heap together. So that is the important point. So note down those points. Those points we are going to use very soon, very, very effectively when we are performing the advanced operations in our examples. Okay, so final conclusion is RAM, JavaScript use two kinds of memories in the RAM. One of them is stack memory. Next one is heap memory. Stack memory can be used to store primitives and references, whereas all objects will be stored in the heap memory only. That is the first point. Second point is primitives contains the names to the variables, whereas non-primitives contains the references but not the names. That is the second important point. So once you understand these two important points, so the storage of primitives as well as non-primitives, how they will be stored in computer memory RAM is said to be cleared. Okay, so that is the subject we discussed up to now. Now let's go and discuss about some complex objects and methods. That is the second topic. So on yesterday, we have seen some objects like this: person object, car object, television object, etc., etc. And we know every object will have pair of braces. Within the pair of braces, we can write the properties. And we know these properties contains key value pairs. For example, if I take the person here, so what is this person? It is the reference to this object. Car is the reference to this object. Television is reference to this object. They should not be called as name of the object is person, name of object is car. Don't use such terminology in any object-oriented programming language. So what is person here? We should not call this as name of object. It is name or it is reference of this object. Car is the reference variable to this object. Television is the reference variables to this object. They should not be called as the names to these objects. Okay. So now if I take the person object, for example, so I have taken some two properties here: ID property, name property. Car, model, brand, television, model, display, some. These objects are called as the very simple objects. Simple objects means the values of objects are primitives. When the values of objects are primitives, those objects are called as simple objects. That means If I take the first property ID, the value 100 is a number belongs to primitive type. The value of name is Ravi, string, which is of primitive type. Model is a string, is of primitive type. Brand, model, again these two are primitive type. Display is also primitive type. Whenever we take the object, if the values of the properties are primitives, such kind of objects can be called as simple objects. But in our real world programming, we have to work with complex objects also. In other words, in many situations, we are going to exclusively work with complex objects only instead of simple objects. Now the question is how an object will become complex, how it differentiate from the simple object. So let us see a practical example for that. Okay, so I have created as usually a new file here and I have opened and which is empty. Now I am going to create some complex object. So I have taken let employee emp, that is the reference variable I have taken, and I'm going to take the object with the properties of employee. We know every employee contains the employee number. I have taken something like this, and employee will have the name. I have taken some name, and employee have some other information, for example designation. I've taken the designation something like developer, for example. Okay, so now we can call it as the simple object, and also we can take many more properties here. Okay, employee number, name, designation. Okay, these three properties I have taken. Let us observe the value of each property is primitive. The value of employee number property 100 is primitive. The value of name is Ravi, primitive. The value of designation is developer string, which is primitive. Now this is a simple object. Now, so what are the other properties object can have? Every employee contains the basic actually. Basic means on which the salary can be calculated. Okay, so whenever you want to calculate the salary of an employee, so salary is not directly available. It is something like age. For example, if someone want to find your age, it is not directly available. First, they should know your date of birth. Based on the date of birth, the age can be calculated. If date of birth is not known, how can we find the age? And the age will be changed from year to year. That's why if someone want to find your age, they should know about your date of birth. In the same way, if you want to find the salary of an employee, salary is not directly available. We should compute the salary. How can we do that? Because companies will provide basic to the employee. Based on the basic, the salary has to be calculated. Let us assume this employee has a basic of 10,000 rupees. Still, it is a primitive object. I mean, very simple object because all the values are primitives. So it is a simple object. Okay, now the employee can have skills actually. So an employee can have more than one skill. Then we can take an array of skills here. So for example, if he is aware of HTML, okay, JavaScript, okay, and if he's also good at React.js. Now I have taken these three are the skills. Now you can find this object is a complex object because now observe this value. This value is non-primitive because skills is the property whose value is an array, and we know the data type of an array is also object. That means an object can have not only primitives as the values, they can have non-primitives also. Next, I want to have the address of the employee. So if I want to take the address of the employee, what is address means? We have to take the street number, state, pin code. Okay, so much of information is part of the address. That means how can we take all this data as an array? No, because if we take the street number is a number and state name, it is a string, pin code is a number again, how can we group all such kind of data in the form of an object? Now I have taken an object here, I can write, so the street is KPHB. Okay, so pin code, so pin code is some value. Now you can see the object is becoming complex step by step. Up to here, this is a simple object because all values are primitives. But come to the next two here, skills is the property which contains the value as an array. Address is the property which contains the value as another object here. Because if you want to represent an object of address, actually the object is the right structure because it contains so many properties in the address. It is not a single value. And also we have to write the city also. So the city is Hyderabad. Okay. So now we can see this object is little bit complex. So up to here, we can realize that the values of an object not only be the primitives, so they can have be non-primitives also. The values of an object can be either primitives as well as non-primitive combination also. Next, not only this, objects can have methods also inside of them. Methods means which can be used to process the data. For example, I want to find the salary of this employee. Salary is not directly available here. Only basic information is available. Basic is 10,000 rupees. How to find the salary? To the basic, HRA and DA should be added. Once we add these house rent allowances and daily allowances to this basic, that can be called as the salary. Let me write a simple formula here for the salary and we can do that calculation. So now the salary should be calculated. To calculate something, we can write the function. So now here I can write a property called as get salary and the value is a function here. The value is the anonymous function I have taken. This is the key. Now this key will act as the name of this function. Now it is the anonymous function here I have taken. Okay, now I just take the normal function declaration here. You no need to make this as function expression or something else. Still it is fine. So now here I want to get the salary. The formula for salary is equal to basic plus HRA plus DA. That is the formula to calculate the salary. Every time when we want to find the salary of a particular employee, it should be calculated. It is not available directly. We cannot mention the salary here because in the next year, he may get an increment and his basic may become 15,000. Then the salary will be changed. That's why the salary should be calculated. It is not a fixed one. Okay. That's why here I have taken some function to calculate. Now, whenever you write a function inside of a object, we can call it as the method. We should not call it as a function. Okay. So why? Because now this function is not existed outside. It is a property of this particular object. Whenever a function is existed as a member of an object, we should call it as the method. In C language, no methods are there. All are functions. In C++, functions are there, methods are there. Functions means friend functions are existed. I think, I don't know whether you reach to that level or not. Friend functions are there and methods are there. When you come to the Java, no functions are there, only methods will be existed. In JavaScript also, methods are there, functions are also there. Okay. So what is the difference? When you write a function outside of an object, we can call it as function only. But when you make it as a member of an object, we should call it as a method. Now this get salary is the method we have taken. Why we need to have a method instead of an object? What is the role of the method? Same as role of the function, to do some computation, to run some business logic. So what business logic it is going to execute here? So whenever someone want to know the salary of this employee Ravi, they should call this method. When they call this method, so it will execute and give the result. Now let us find the salary here. So the first thing is we need to calculate HRA. So let HRA is equal to, generally the HRA is in percentages of the basic. Sometimes the HRA can be 15% of basic, DA can be 10% of the basic. Let us take these rough values and do the calculation. Let us assume 10% HR of basic. 10% means 0.10. Okay, 10 by 100 means 0.10 into basic. Remember, if I write basic here, it leads to error immediately. Because when I write some variable name in the method, it will search for that variable outside of this object automatically. It will search for this variable outside of this method. For example, if I have given basic here, it will simply search for the basic variable outside of this object. Is there any variable existed at outside of this object with name basic? No. But where is basic available? It is also a member of this object. When you are referring the members of the object, we should use this dot. This is the special reference variable, always refers to the properties of that particular object. So now you can find the difference between basic and this dot basic. So basic means that is the variable which is existed outside of object. This means inside of object. If I write basic here directly without this dot basic, if I write basic, it will search for this property at outside. No variable is existed outside with that name, so it leads to error. Now I need to inform to this object, hey object, I am talking about this basic, which is member of yourself itself. Then I have to write this dot basic. What this keyword will do? This is a keyword in JavaScript. You can get the same keyword in C++ also. This always refers to the current object. Now this EMP is the object. Every object internally contains a special reference variable, which is this. If I write this dot basic, which is equivalent to EMP dot basic, so then the HRA can be calculated. And let me calculate the DA also. Now I would like to have the DA as some HRA, let it be 15%, 0.15. And DA can be 10%, for example, 0.10 into this dot basic. HRA, DA, both are calculated. Now let us find the salary. Let salary is equal to, how can we get the salary? Basic means this dot basic plus HRA. See, HRA is not the property of the object. It is the local variable of this method, so that you should not use this for. We should not mention this as this dot HRA. It is just HRA plus DA. We have to use this reference variable only for the properties. Here basic is the property of this object. That's why we are using this dot basic. Whereas HRA and DA, these two are not properties of this object. They are just data we have taken instead of this method. Now the salary is ready. Let us return the salary as usually. So except the naming convention, it is same as a function. Only depending upon its placement, we can call it as either function or method, but both internally contains the business logic. Both will be executed upon calling it. So remaining properties are same actually. Only the difference is where you write that function. If you write that instead of an object, you should call it as the method. And if you write it outside of the object, you can call it as the function as usually. So now you can see this is the complex, an example of the complex object. Once you look at this object, here I have covered almost all primitive and non-primitives. Okay, so that the primitives have and skills, address, get salary. These three have the non-primitive values also. So final conclusion, the properties, the values of an object. The values of an object can be primitives, non-primitives, and they can be even functions also. Okay, so now let us try to extract the values one by one. So first of all, I would like to find the skills. So get skills. How can we get the skills here? It's very simple. How to access the properties of an object? We can write reference variable dot the particular property. For example, if you want to get the skills, then I can write emp.skills. I already explained you on yesterday how to access the properties of an object. You cannot call them directly. For example, if I write just skills, save this, you will get an error. Skills is not defined. Where skills are existed? Within the object. If you want to refer anything within the object, you should use the reference of the object, emp dot. Now save it, you will get an array that represents the skills of this array. Okay, now I want to get salary, for example. So CL console.log. How can we call this? emp dot, the name of the function is get salary. Okay, so get salary. But get salary is a method, so that you need to write the pair of braces here. When you write the pair of braces, this is equivalent to the function call, so it would be ready. Now let me save this. You can see the total salary is 12,500. His basic is 10,000, and after adding HRA and DA, his salary became 12,500. Now once you observe these two statements, skills is the property, get salary is another property, but skills property represents an array, get salary property represents a method. That's why we have to call the method to make it execute, so that I have attached this pair of braces. So now you can find one more point here that come under the difference between function and method. If we have a function, for example, let's take a function here, function test function I have taken, and I can write something like return test called. So now if you want to call this function, it would be very easy. I can call it by using the name, save it. Now the test function has executed. So whenever you want to call a function, you can just call by using its name. Simple. But when you are calling a method, you cannot call it directly. You have to call it with the name, with the reference of the object, emp dot. Let us see what happens if I call only get salary here without taking the reference of the object. Save it, you will get an error. See here, get salary is not defined at the line number 25 in the 6.js. Line number 25 means this one, and it is saying, hey, you are calling get salary, but I could not find get salary function here, because it searched for get salary function. But get salary is a function or method here? It's a method. So how to call a method? By using the reference of that object. If I write emp dot, then it will go to the employee object. There it can find get salary and executes this function. But when we are calling a function here, of course it executes this method actually. But when we are calling this test function, it is not existed inside of any object. It is a self-existed kind of function. So if I call this, simply it will identify that function and it will execute. That is the another difference. Anytime if you want to call a method, you should use the reference. So based on this, we can understand console is a predefined object in JavaScript. It contains a method called log. So how can you call the method on object? Console.log. It is the predefined function. Okay, that's why if you want to call the log method of the console object, console is the predefined object in JavaScript. So it contains so many useful methods. Log is one of the methods. That's why whenever you want to call the log method of console object, we should use the reference of that object console.log. So that is the meaning of the statement. But on very first day also, we used the statement console.log. But without understanding the concept of objects and methods, one cannot define this one. That's why I ask you just to use this statement as it is to print something to the console. Later, you can find the detailed information about that. Now it is the time that you got the complete information about this console.log. Whenever you see the dot operator, so at the left side of the dot operator, you can see the reference of the object. So here emp is the object created by us. Console is the object created by JavaScript already. That's why here we are calling emp.getSalary. Here this console object is already there. Log method is already available. So we are calling console.log directly in this way. So the final conclusion is complex object is an object whose values can be primitives as well as non-primitive combination also. And not only that, an object can have methods also inside of that, which can be used to calculate the values. Now you may ask a question, sir, why we write this method inside of this object? Why can't we write outside as the function here? Yes, you can do that. But the important thing is, if you want to write very normal business logic, then you can write it as a function. But what this particular method is doing, it is taking the data from this object and doing the computation. So when the properties of an object are being participated in that computation, then you have to do that as a private process within that object itself, because it is not accessing any outside data. It is taking the basic data that is available within this object and doing the calculation. That's why whenever you want to process the data of an object, you should write the methods inside of that object, not outside functions itself. So this is one example to find the to experience the complex objects. So in our real world programming, very soon we are going to work with only these kind of complex objects. Sometimes we need to work with more complex objects than this. The size of each object can be very big in. Okay, so now let us see the next one. I want to get city. So now you have to tell me how to get the city here. So where is city existed? It is not directly existed as the property of this object. So EMP is the reference variable which contains another reference variable called address. That means here I should write EMP dot address, and inside of the address another property is there called city. So we have to write EMP dot address dot city. Save it, you can see the city is Hyderabad. So why we have taken two dot operators here? Because EMP refers to the main object. This is the main object, whereas address refers to the nested object inside of this one. We can call address as the nested object in the EMP, and city is the property existed here. So if you want to reach to this, first we need to start EMP dot address dot city. Okay. Next, I want to find how many skills this user has, number of skills. Number of skills in the sense EMP dot skills. It is an array, and we know the array has the property called length. So we can print it. You can see he have total 3 skills. So like that, we can use these properties in our things. Okay, this is a best example to demonstrate a complex object. So ask me if you have any questions about this complex object before proceeding the next concept. So now I want to create a student object. So create student object. So let student, here you can take either list or constant, that's your choice. If I don't want other developers to use this name, it is good practice to use constant in place of the let. Okay, but sometimes if you want to make this to reassign values, then you can use let here. I already explained you the difference between let and constant. You can use accordingly. So let me write, you can have some roll number. Let me take a simple properties now, name, and after that he will get the marks. Okay, so let us take marks means it's not a single value, so all are exist as numbers, so that all similar data can be packed as an array. So I can take some marks here. So 90, 97, 95 and 90 and 67. For example, I have taken some marks. Okay, and also let us have, he have some address also. I can take an object as address. Like, let me make it empty. You know how to fill this address part. And also you can have some mobile number. That is also a primitive. And now get aggregate. So if someone asks you what's your aggregate means, aggregate is not directly available. It should be calculated based on your marks. If you know your marks, then the aggregate need to be calculated, so that here the value is a function again, and here you need to write the logic to find or to calculate aggregate. Of course, I think you know the business logic to write the to find the aggregate, sum of marks by number of subjects actually, and you can return that value. So this is another example here. So that stood for complex object. So like that, you can take some good number of objects and practice. So the complex object concept is completed. So now the methods concept is also completed, and we know the difference between function and method also. So from today onwards, we are going to write functions as well as methods also. Don't get confused. Okay, so they have some separate meaning actually. Okay, we should use the right terminology. And the next one that we are going to discuss is array operations. So what are array operations? Yesterday we just learned how to access element, either how to access some elements, how to access all elements by using iteration. Only these two things we have learned. But today we are going to learn all the remaining advanced methods to perform an operations on the array. So let's get started here. So for that purpose, I can take an array and I can demonstrate that with this example. So I have taken some sample array here. I have taken the name as sample. Okay, and I can take some values here. I've taken very simple array and I want to print that array here. So initial array. Okay, initial array I have taken and print the value here, sample, and save it. Now you can see the initial array is this one. Before performing any other operations, the initial array look like this. And what operations we can generally perform on the array? Remember, when the program is executing, it is required to add some new elements dynamically. Dynamical in the sense, you may ask, sir, adding an element is very simple. So for example, if you want to add 40, you can do it like this. That means when you know the number of elements in advance, you can keep that elements directly into this array. But sometimes we need to update this array by getting the new data from the database. How will you know which data will come and how many elements will come? Or sometimes we need to remove some elements from here. How do you know in advance how many elements need to be removed and what are those elements? All such information will be known only during the program's execution. Remember that point. In many situations on our programming, so the objects can be manipulated only during the execution of the program. How can we do that? Yes, now I'm going to teach you how to insert elements to an array dynamically, how to remove elements from this, how to update elements from this. All these three operations are very, very, very important, which we can use very frequently. First, let me focus on insert operation. When we think about insert, immediate doubt is where to insert. So it has three positions to insert an element. For example, let me take an array of 4 elements. For example, if you want to insert an element, where we can do that? I can insert the new element either in the beginning of the array or at the end of the array or in between beginning and ending, anywhere. Three important positions are there to insert an element into that array. So how can we do that? Actually, it is quite complex process if you write the business logic for that. For example, if you want to insert an element in the first position, first you need to shift all these elements towards the right side to get this empty space at the first location and insert the new element. And if I delete some 20 here, for example, then all the right side elements should be shifted one element to the left side to fill this white space, because in the array, empty spaces are not allowed actually. That means we need to write the complex business logic to shift the elements either to left side or right side while performing dynamic insertions as well as deletions. But in JavaScript, you no need to write such complex logic. All predefined methods are available, so you can just call them and do that. So let us perform the insert operation now. So let us take this as the initial array. I have taken 4 elements. And I want to insert some elements in the beginning dynamically. If I want to insert some elements dynamically, there is a method called unshift. Unshift is the method which can be used to insert either 1 to n number of elements in the beginning of the array. And it is not a function, it is a method. Its name is unshift. And it will take the elements as the arguments. You can pass as many elements as you can. For example, if I call unshift method by passing 1 and 2 on this array, what happened means it will insert these 2 elements in the beginning of the array like this and shift all the existing elements towards the right side one location like this. And for resultant array will be in this way. So let's compare these two arrays. This is initial array, and after inserting some elements in the beginning, so the resultant array will be like this. Anytime if you want to insert elements in the beginning of the array, you should call unshift method. How can we call the methods? Just now I said methods can be called with object reference. What is reference here? In this example, sample is the reference. That means, so now let me write insert at beginning. That means sample is the reference of this array dot the method name is unshift. See here, when you type dot means it will show all the methods that can be called on this. So from that, if you type un or just u, it will show you all the methods which contains that. You can just select it. You don't need to manually type everything. You might make some mistakes. And it will allow you to insert either one or many elements. For example, if I have taken one, then it will insert that element. So let me print the resultant array after insertion at start and print the sample array again. Yeah, typo. See here, compare these two arrays. This is the beginning array, initial array, which contains 10, 20, 30, 40. But now the one element is inserted as the first element. Actually, 10 is the first element, but now it shifts all the existing elements, one element to the right side and inserts that element here itself. How can we do that? Very easily, just by calling unshift method. But in C language, if you want to do this, you have to write the manual logic. Some 4 or 5 lines of code you need to write for the shifting logic and all. But here you need to just call this inbuilt method. This method internally have the logic of shifting elements and inserting elements in the beginning. Now, sometimes you want to insert multiple elements. You just pass all these elements one by one. For example, if you want to insert 3 elements at a time, so this unshift method can take either one argument or many values as arguments. Now you can see the 1, 2, 3 in the order whatever I have supplied inserted at the beginning of the array. Even you can insert some 100 elements also by passing all the values in the single method call itself. All will be inserted in the beginning of the array. So to make it simple, I would like to insert only 2 elements here. So hence it is clear, inserting elements at the beginning of the array can be done by using unshift method. And we know every function or method returns some value. We should know what the returns. This is the predefined method. So this unshift method returns. If you want to know about these methods, for example, unshift is the totally new method. You don't know how to use this method. Very simple thing is just keep cursor on the method. When you keep cursor on the method, it will give you the complete information about usage of the method. So the first one is there. You may not understand this one. Come to the second line. Insert new elements at the start of an array and returns the new length of the array. Simple. So this statement will give you the complete meaning of this method. So you no need to Google. So what is unshift method? How it behaves? You no need to search in Google. Just keep cursor on it. So a pop-up will come. It will give you the complete information. See here, inserts new elements, not element. You can insert either one or many elements at the start of an array and it returns the new length of the array. Why? Because after inserting elements, the length will be changed. Initial length is 4. Now the length is 6. So it returns the length. If you want to get the new length, you can provide some left-hand side variable. And you can print the new length also here. But if you don't want that length, you can, if you don't want to get, you're not interested in the length of this new array, you can just remove it. No issues at all. If you want to get the value, so you can provide some left-hand side variable because it returns the latest length. What is the latest length? Definitely it is 6. You can see when you print the array in the console, in the first it will show you the length of that array. Initially it is 4, now it is 6. In this case, I'm not very interested to get the length of this new array, so that I have removed the left-hand side variable. But if you want, you can place it. So inserting elements in the beginning is completed successfully. Now, okay, at the beginning is fine. How to insert elements at the end? The second important position is ending. Sometimes we need to insert elements at the end. So for that purpose, we can call push method. And it also takes 1 to n number of arguments, and it will insert all these things at the end of the array. So this is the initial array. After inserting 100 and 200 by calling push method, this push method will take these two elements and insert at the end of the array, not at the beginning. Okay, so let us see this example also. Next one, insert at end. So on the sample reference variable, I have to call the push method, and you can supply the values as many as you can. As of now, to make it simple, I'm adding only these two. So now I can write after inserting at end. Now you can see, compare the previous array and the current array. Previous array contains only 6 elements, and these are the elements here. But come to this next one, which contains 8 elements, and the last 2 elements are 100, 200. 1, 2 are inserted at the beginning of the array, 100, 200 are inserted at the end of the array. Remember guys, everyone should learn these methods, because very soon, once we start our React.js programming, then we are going to use these methods extensively. At that time, I won't teach you what is push method, what is unshift method and all. I can directly start. For example, in the React application, it is required to insert new elements at the end of the array. Then you should immediately get the idea of push method. No one will help you, so you need to call push method, the syntax of the push method, that information we don't have the time to discuss and all. You need to learn everything here itself, and you need to start using them in future. Okay, so now I want to know more about push method. Keep cursor. See, appends new elements to the end of the array and returns the new length of the array. That means the unshift method and push method both returns the length of the new array, but I'm not interested in its length. That's why I have not provided the left hand side variable. Okay, this is completed. The next one is insert at middle. Middle in the sense not exact middle, anywhere in between beginning and ending. Okay, so how can we do that? So if you want to insert at the in between actually, okay, so then we need to go with index based insertion actually, because JavaScript can easily identify what is beginning of the array and also at the end of the array. But if you want to insert at some other locations instead of either ending or beginning, definitely we have to specify the index. Hey, you have to insert these values and this specific index. That's why this is called as index based insertion. So to insert in the beginning, index is not required, because JavaScript know what is beginning of the array. To insert at the ending, no index energy is required. It knows the end of the array. But if you want to insert somewhere else in between beginning and ending, we should specify at which index we have to insert that element. So for that purpose, we can use splice method. Splice is very useful method which can be used for insertion, deletion, and updation also. Okay, one method can do these 3 kinds of things. Very useful method. Now I'm going to use this method for the insertion purpose here. So now I write, for example, it takes 3 arguments here, 2, 0, 123. What does it mean? So the first argument represents the index where you want to insert an element. If I write 2 here, now I would like to insert the element at the index number 2. If you want to insert an element in the index number 4, you can write the first value as the 4. So the first value represents the index where you want to insert the new element. The second argument represents how many elements need to be removed from there. Actually, my intention is only to insert the new element, but not to remove. That's why I can keep the value as 0. 0 means 0 elements can be removed. Third one is the new element here. So if I write 2, 0, 123, which means at the index number 2, don't remove any value and insert new value 123. Now take this initial array. What is index number 2 here? 0, 1, 2. So index number 2 means 30 is there. Now I'm inserting 123 in that place. Then see here at the index number 3, 123 appeared here, and the remaining 2 are shifted towards the right side here. That is the power of this method. Now we can specify any index here, so it will insert the value at that index. Let us see here, index based insertion. Insert in between. Instead of in middle means we can write insert in between. In between means anything in between beginning and ending, not in the exact middle itself. So I can write sample is the reference and the method name is splice, SPLICE. One more method is there called slice, SLICE. Don't get confused. Slice purpose is different. That can be used for strings actually. This is splice, SPLICE. Now I want to insert at the index number 3 and the 0 elements need to be removed and the new element is 111 for example. So let me keep cursor on it and see. Removes elements from an array. If necessary, insert new elements in their place, returns the deleted element. Deleted elements. Okay. So as I said, we can use it to insert elements, delete elements. So now it returns the deleted element. But here I mentioned the second value as 0. That means I am not deleting anything here. So we no need to catch the return value. Okay. So now let us see. After inserting in between, let me print the sample object. Now let's compare these two objects here, guys. So 111, actually here I have mentioned at the index number 3, 111 need to be inserted. So the previous array contains 10 in the index number 3, sorry, 20 in the index number 3. This is index number 3 actually. But now in the same index, in place of 20, so 111 is there. The 20 and all the remainings are shifted to the right side, one element, to provide the space for this. Now, not only this, you can insert multiple elements also. For example, if I write like this. So at the index number 3, we can insert multiple elements also. Save this, you can see 111, 222, both are inserted one by one like this. So now by using these 3 methods, you can insert one or many elements. Unshift method can be used to insert elements in the beginning of the array. Push method to insert elements at the end of the array. Splice method to insert anywhere between beginning and ending. It is index based. That's why in the syntax, the first element represents the index where we want to insert the element. Second argument represents how many elements need to be removed, because the same method can be used for removal purpose also. But if you don't want to remove someone, you can just keep 0. And from third argument onwards, you can write any number of elements. All these elements will be inserted in the specific index. So now in the index number 3, 111, 222, all will be inserted in this way. Hence, the way of inserting elements in the array is completed. So you can ask me if you have any questions about this insertion operation on an array. So now let us focus on delete operations. Again, delete at start, next delete at end, next delete in between. These 3 things we are going to discuss now. Okay, so first of all, how to delete from the start. So if you want to delete an element from the start, there is a method called shift, which is opposite to unshift actually. Unshift can be used to insert in the beginning. Shift can be used to delete from the beginning. But important thing is, by using 3 methods in the insertion approach, we can insert either one or many elements at one time. But all the delete methods will help you only to delete one element at one time. Okay, so when you call the shift method, you no need to pass any arguments. Why? Because the shift method will know the beginning of the array. It will go to the beginning of the array, remove the very first element and adjust existing elements by shifting them towards the left side, and the resultant array will be like this. 10 will be removed. Okay, so now you may ask, sir, how can I remove 2 elements by using the shift method? You have to call this method for 2 times. Okay, yes, what one time? All the methods that are used to remove elements can remove actually 1 element maximum. Okay, let us see this in action practically. So now This is the final resultant array as of now. After making many insertions, this is the resultant array, the last one actually. So now I want to delete something. I can write sample reference variable dot, the name of the method is shift. Now I want to know how this method behaves. Keep cursor on it. Removes the first element from the array and returns it. Remember guys, all delete methods in general in C, C++, Java, JavaScript, Python, everywhere, after removing some elements, they will return that. Because once that element is removed, it is not available. But sometimes the removed data might be required in future in our application. That's why all these methods will remove them and returns that element. We can temporarily store them in the variable and we can use it if they're required in future also. If the array is empty, undefined is returned and the array is not modified. That's it guys. Removes the first element from an array and returns it. So now I want to see what value it return. Let removed element is equal to. Okay, so removed element 1 I have taken. Let me print this. After remove from start. After remove from start, save it. You can see, compare these two arrays, last two arrays. So initially it contains the first element 1. Now it has 2. That means the 1 has removed and the remaining elements are adjusted towards the left side. So it works successfully. And also I want to see the removed element. CLG removed element is, let me print the removed element 1, save it. You can see the removed element is 1 because 1 is the element is existed here that was removed. That's it, simple. Next, delete element at the end. So for that purpose we can use pop method. Okay, so I will show you. So the pop method can be used, which is opposite to push method. Push method can be used to insert element at the ending, whereas pop method can be used to remove element from the ending. So now if we take this as the initial array, if I call pop method on this, it also won't take any argument. It will go to the end of the array, remove that element, and returns that element, and the resultant array will be like this. Okay, so now let removed element 2 is equal to sample reference variable and the name of the method is pop, and I would like to print these two statements. After removed from the end and removed element is 2. Yeah, save it. Now you can see, compare these two. Actually 200 is the last element. Before removing the element, 200 is the last one, but after calling the pop method, the last element is 100, not the 200, and the removed element is 200. Now I have stored the removed elements into some variables. So later in my program, if I need them again, I can use by using these variables. Otherwise I can simply ignore. It is better to store the removed data for future purpose. Okay, this is also clear. And the last one is delete in between. It is very simple. Here we can use the splice method again. Index based deletion, because in between means where to delete. So same splice method, but it will take only 2 arguments now. To insert an element, it will take 3 arguments, but to delete, it will take only 2 arguments. The first argument is same, the index where you want to delete, which element you want to delete, that index you need to mention here. Next, second argument represents how many elements you want to delete from that location. By using this splice method, you can delete many elements also, one or many. But shift and pop method allow you to delete one element at one time, whereas this indexed based deletion using splice method allow you to delete any number of elements. For example, if you take this as the initial array, if I call splice method by passing 2, 1, which means from the index number 2, remove one element. What is index number 2 here? 30. Remove one element means 30 removed and returns, and the rest of the resultant array is like this. So let's do it. Delete in between. So let removed element 3 is equal to, so sample dot splice. So from the index number 4, I want to delete one element. Okay, so after removing the element, let me print that. After remove in between and removed element. See, now let me keep cursor on it. You can show remove elements from an array. Okay, and what it returns. See here, remove elements from the array nested inserts. Parameters start, parameter count. See, the last one returns. It returns an array containing the elements that were deleted. So why it returns an array means, see, the shift method returns the removed element. Pop method also returns the removed element. But the splice method will return an array of removed elements, because by using splice method, we can delete multiple elements also. That's why when we delete multiple elements, it will pack them into an array and returns that array. That's why it returns an array here. Let us save and see the thing. Compare the last two arrays. So in the last two array at the index number 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 20 is there. But now in the latest array, index number 4 contains 30, not the 20. 20 or which one? Yeah. Index number 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here I have to change this to 3. Yeah. Now you can see it has returned an array which contains only one element, 20 here. Okay, so from the index number 4, 20 was there, but now 20 has removed from here. For example, if I write 4, 2, what does it mean? From the index number 4, remove 2 elements. From the index number 4, remove 2 elements. That is the meaning of this statement. Now let me save and see here. Index number 4 contains 20 and 2 elements means 20 and 30. See here, now in the resultant, 20 and 30 both are removed and 40, 100 left here, and the removed elements an array with 20 and 30. If I give 4, 3, you can easily guess. So from the index number 4, 3 consecutive elements are removed and the resultant array will be like this. Okay, in that way we can use the splice method. See here, the same splice method we use it for insertion purpose also, and we can use it for the delete purpose also, but with a slight difference in syntax here. So insertion operation is completed, delete operation is completed. Now the last and interesting operation is replace element. So you can easily guess, for replace elements also we can use the same splice method. For example, let us take sample dot splice. Now from at the index number 2, remove one element and replace with 1, 2, 3, 4. If I write like this, what does it mean? We know the first one represents the index. So from the index number 2, the second one represents how many elements to remove. If I write 2, 1 from the index number 2, remove one element, and the third one represents the elements to be inserted into that. So now the final meaning of the statement is from the index number 2, remove one element and insert 1, 2, 3, 4 in that place. So now let me print the resultant array. After replacement, after replace, save it. Now you can see, guys, the previous array. See, this is the previous array. This previous array contains 111 in the index number 2. Now the 111 is replaced with 1, 2, 3, 4. That means it is removed, and in that place we write the new element, which is called as the replacement. So the length of the array is same 5 here, and it is also 5 because we replace the existing element with some new element. Okay, so like that we can use the same splice method. Now, sir, what about the removed element? Yes, you can catch it. Let removed element 4 is equal to, and let me print the removed element. Save. Now the removed element is 111. So initially 111 was there, Now it's replaced by 1, 2, 3, 4, and the removed element is this one. So now we can see these operations represents all the things like inserting, deleting, updating, as well as replacement also. But most interesting part here is one method is common to perform insertion, deletion, and replacement. That is splice method. That's why splice is very powerful and very useful method in our application development, and remaining methods also very much useful to us. In this way, we can perform the operations on an array. Any doubts? Please ask me. So now let us see how to perform these sample operations on an object also, and let's close the session. See, to perform these operations means inserting new properties, removing existing properties. These all are simple operations. It won't take much time. Just within 5 minutes, we can learn how to perform those operations on an object also. That means adding a property, deleting a property, updating a property, just like how we did here. But array has so many possibilities in the beginning, ending, etc., because array is an ordered collection. But if we take an object, it is an unordered collection. It is very easy to insert new properties, removing existing properties, updating properties also. So let us complete that and we can close the session. For that purpose, I can take very simple object. So I have taken very simple object here. That is a simple object. Now I want to insert a new property. Okay, I want to insert the new property. How can we insert the new property? It is very easy. To insert the new property, so take the reference of the object dot, write the new key, whatever you want to insert. I want to insert the mobile number. Then I can write the key as mobile is equal to the value. That's it, guys. So simply it will go to the student object by using its reference and search for the key mobile. Is there any key existed with the name mobile? No. Then it will add this new key with the value, this one. So now let me print this and you can see how it appears. So I would like to print student. Save it. You can see now this object has name, age, and mobile. But when we created this initially, it contains name, age only. But here you can see this resultant object have name, age, and mobile number also. It's very easy to insert the new properties into an array. So now let me write one more property. Student dot marks is equal to, I have taken an array 90, 98, from 98, 97, for example. Save it. Now you can see once you expand this, for clarity, you can see age, the marks property is also added. But when we take the initial array, it contains name and age, but these two are inserted dynamically, the new properties. So inserting new properties is very easy. Take the reference, write the new key and the value. It will search for the key. If it is not there, it will add this key value pair as a new property to the existing object. Hence it is clear. Next, delete properties. Deleting properties is very easy. For that purpose, we can use a special operator called delete. So in JavaScript, there is a special operator whose name is delete, which can be used to delete properties from the object. For example, if you want to delete age, then I can write student.age and we can keep delete before it. Once they keep delete before it, now let me print this and save. You can see this object have the properties like marks, mobile, name, but age is not available. But actually age was there in the beginning, but what happened, now I have removed that property, hence it has removed. In that way, we can remove some unwanted properties also by using the delete operator. And the last one is update properties. Properties or property, whatever it can be. So updating property is also same as inserting. For example, I want to change the name from Ravi to Ravi Kumar. What should I do? I can write sample dot name is equal to Ravi Kumar. What is this? Yeah, it's not sample, it is student, sorry. Yeah, student typo. Yeah, student.name. If I write student.name, now you can see for inserting and for updating, we have used the same syntax, but the difference is when we are inserting the new property, we can write the new key here. Mobile is the new key, marks is the new key. But when we are updating, we can write the existing key here. If I write student.name, then it will go to the student object and search for the name. It is already there. Then it will replace the previous value with the latest value. Previously, this key has Ravi. Now it will update this with Ravi Kumar. So now let me print this. So now you can see his name is not Ravi and it is changed to Ravi Kumar. Okay, that's it guys. Inserting new properties, deleting existing properties, updating existing properties is very simple operations in an object. But when you come to an array, so many ways are there to perform. That's why a good number of methods are existed. But for an object, we can perform these three basic operations very easily in this way. So it is enough for the day guys. Now you can post any doubts you have in the WhatsApp group.